Hi, friends. In our time together today, I want to talk a bit more about an aspect of breath control, and that is how hard, gently, focused, or broad we blow into our whistles. When you first get started playing, the advice you get is just blow gently into the whistle as though you were blowing gently through a straw. And that's really good advice. But you soon find that you have to do different things when you're blowing to play a low note, when you're blowing to play a low note gently, when you're blowing to play a low note loud, when you're blowing to play a high note, and on and on and on. Over time and through experience, you begin to realize that you modify, you fine tune, you adjust the ways you blow into the whistle to do different things. And that's really what I want us to focus on today. We said that learning to play the whistle involves learning breath control. And breath control is about much more than learning when to breathe. It involves learning the breath pressure, the focus of your air, or how wide or narrow you're blowing into your whistle, and what that accomplishes, and how you can learn to play. A lot of people say, it took me forever to learn to play the high notes. And that's because a lot of people are trying to play high notes like they play a low notes, but just pushing more air in. And that's hard to do. So this whole conversation has come out of my experience combined with conversations I've had with some of you, particularly conversations that Joey, a great member of our community, and I have had. So the air you push into your whistle to play a low note is different than the narrowing of the column of air you're going to use to play a higher note. And what's interesting is it actually differs from one whistle to another, and it's more pronounced on a low whistle than on a high whistle. So, for example, and I'll try and pronounce my mouth. The challenge is you're not really going to notice this much in somebody's playing. But if I'm playing a low note more gently, I notice that my mouth is a little more open and I'm just permitting the air to flow. I'm not tightening my mouth. I'm not narrowing the insides of my mouth. And it's just a more gentle stream of air coming through a relaxed mouth. The chamber of my mouth is not tightened or focused. Now, if I'm playing the low E, and I'd like you to do this. Play the low E and just see how your mouth feels as you do that. Now, we say that when you're moving from the lower octave to the upper octave, that you just change the pressure. But if you simply blow harder without changing anything about that stream of air, you're going to use a lot of air. And it works. It works really well. And you could do that. But it takes more air. But if you were to move from that relaxed mouth to narrowing the inside of your mouth a little and focusing your air, I've actually narrowed some of what I'm doing on the inside of my mouth, and I'm focusing the air. It's like I'm blowing through a smaller straw. And that permits me to play that note a little more easily than if I just pushed a lot more air, like we say when moving from the lower E to the second octave E. And it just starts getting loud and less controlled. But when I focus that air, I'm narrowing the passage in my mouth. I'm, as it were, blowing through a smaller straw. I can pull back on the air pressure because I'm focusing the air I have. Some people say they feel their jaw firming up a little. Some don't. It all depends what other instruments you've played, whether you're going to have that experience. By focusing your air, I mean finding a way to narrow the column of air you're blowing into the whistle. You're actually wasting less air, and you're focusing it into the whistle. So, like I said, some actually describe this as narrowing the inside of your mouth so that you could focus the air. But think of it more like blowing through your mouth gently or whistling. You know, when you have to focus that to whistle. So maybe think of it that way. That might help you. So now what I want to think about is, you can get away with just blowing harder to play the bottom half of the second octave and not narrowing your air. But you're going to have to start focusing that air, however you want to do it, when you get into the top. Many of us say we need to learn to tame the whistle in the upper end. And what you're doing is you're actually learning to focus that column of air so that you could play the higher second octave notes. And I was accentuating that a little. You may have noticed it looks like my lips are tightening a little. And that's part of what I'm doing to narrow the chamber inside my mouth to do that. Now, not everybody does this, but most people seem to find that this is the best way to learn to control those higher notes. So I'd like you to experiment with that. Now, another thing this does, sometimes you find that a note's a little flat. I'd like you to play the second octave E again and play it well, and then dial back the focus of your air. Notice what happens to me. When I relax and open the inside of my mouth up, I still get good pressure. I still am playing the note, but the note flattens a bit. So if I'm playing a note and it's a little flat, if you bring the air you're blowing into the whistle into a slightly more narrow column of air, you can bring that note back into tune. You can come up on top of it a bit more, and you can focus that note. And so that's another good practice to do. You're not going to notice drastic changes with this, but you will notice that you're able to play better. If you learn this practice, you're able to play the high notes better, and you'll find that you're able to actually learn to play the top of your whistle. And I've had many people say, I finally cracked playing those high notes. I'm focusing the stream of air, and I'm learning how to do that with each of those notes. So it all depends. It's different whistle to whistle, note to note, but you're going to learn how to do this. You're going to learn to play your whistle better by focusing your air, or on some notes, relaxing that air and increasing the size of the chamber of your mouth. So this all is a key part to learning to play your whistle well. Experiment, my friends, with having like the inside of your mouth a little broader and more relaxed. Learn to maybe narrow the inside of your mouth and focus the air going into your whistle. It will help you playing the higher notes. It will help you bring a note in tune. Relaxing the inside of your mouth will help you play a more mellow lower note. You've heard me say this a number of times, but learning to play well requires a good amount of experimentation and practice. This is another area where I want us to experiment and practice. You won't be able to easily see someone doing this as they play the whistle, but they are doing it, trust me. So learn by practice, experimentation, but try out different things with how relaxed the inside of your mouth is, how big or small you're making the chamber, the airway that you're pushing into your whistle. And you'll find that you're playing better. My friends, I hope this helps you. Until next time, this is Scott Shade. Happy whistling.